All right, this week we're learning about Noah saved the whole world. Good, so Noah, this whole thing of the destruction of the world, this happened about like 1,500 years something after the creation of the world. After the creation, things were getting worse and worse. And God brought a flood, killed everybody, even the animals, even the birds, didn't kill the fish. In Torah or Parshas Noach, that's what we learned this week. Verter Kleret is explained as the mabul, that the flood that God brought to the world is given nitnor astrof. It wasn't just a punishment. It was a punishment, of course, but it wasn't only a punishment. Nor oich an inyan from tahara, reinikum. It was a purification. It was, how do you call it? Education. Der Mabul hat metargeven de Welt. The flood actually purified the world. Like if you buy, there's a law in Judaism that if you buy a utensil, an eating utensil, that was not made by a Jew, you're supposed to immerse it in a mikvah. And that removes any what's called impurity from it. That's the law. Eating utensils, they have to be immersed in a mikvah. A person also has to be immersed in a mikvah. So we see that what does a mikvah do? It elevates whatever goes into it and removes impurities. And what does it mean, impurities? Impurities means that it's more connected to the world than it is to the Creator. Because just think about it for 1 minute. What's really wrong about all these things that are forbidden to do? What's wrong with murder and stealing and things like that? In communist Russia and in Nazi Germany, it was 100% okay. Just had to kill the right person. But in communist Russia, you killed a person that was a capitalist, that had money under his thing. In Germany, you killed the enemy, you killed somebody who wasn't Aryan, you stole their money, right? Russia, everybody's stealing, the government stole everything from everybody. Germany, they find all these treasures and things like that. If they would have won something, but nothing wrong with it. What's wrong with it? So the answer is that the Torah says that it's forbidden to do, but people will say that it's okay because it's connected to, it's a natural thing to do. You make up your own laws, you're God. So that's called impurity. Doing what you want and being, so there's certain things that this impurity can be removed by immersing in water. And this was the case with the whole entire world. The whole entire world had become perverted. Nothing in the world was going according to the way God wanted it to be. It was just going according to nature. So therefore, God said, okay, let's see who wins. It's me against you. Let's see who wins. I'll make a flood. If you live, then you win. Let's see if you can live under the water. Right? You want to make up your own laws, so make up this law that a human being can live under boiling water for a year. Why not try it? Let's see. So of course, who won? God won. But what happened was the world became the way God wanted it to be. Not destroyed, but purified. It became refined, like taking the vessel and putting it into the world. It wasn't connected to the world so much. Now it was connected more to the Creator. It purified the world. Velcha is faran, Velcha is foreign mabul because before the flood, given an umrin, the world was impure. And therefore is the mabul. The mabul was 40 days. The water fell down for 40 days and it remained on the ground for longer. But what was 40 days? Why 40 days? is ankegen. This corresponds to the 40 sa'ah of a mikvah. A mikvah is a specially built pool of water. There's a lot of standards, but according to these standards, it purifies. Women go to the mikvah like once a month. Therefore, married women. Therefore, veriter mabo, and it has to be 40 saw. There's 40 measurements. Let's say 40, whatever it is, gallons or something corresponding. Therefore, veriter mabo angerufen meinoch. For the flood is called the waters of Noah. Neicha rucha. It is nachat ruach. It is pleasing to God. Pleasing. Was it pleasing? Because things became the way God wanted to, not the way the world wanted to. Thus, dem Welt, does Zelba, the same thing, wird dort in Torah or, also the same thing is explained in Torah or, this book that we were learning in the morning with Torah or, by the Alter Rebbe, first Rebbe, is ois fearlich der Klert is ois oich benogea daigos tirdos from Parnas. There, it's explicitly explained that nowadays these flood waters are the worries that we have, that the world gives us. Disappointments, frustrations, anxieties in the world, the lack of money, problems from health, problems from children, worries. Velcha veren angerufen, they're called mayim rabim. This world can throw a person in what's called turbulent waters. Viel Wasser, here is a lot of water. Schwenken ze arop beim Menschen the inyanim. This washes away from a person the things which should not be there. On poilem damit, and also makes what's called a neicha derucha. Sometimes a person has troubles in the world as he has to sort of let go of himself a little bit and start to rely on his creator. And then all of a sudden he realizes that things are okay, that he was worrying unnecessarily. He was anxious too much. He was angry. His anger wasn't in place. His depression, all the things that the world causes us, suddenly a person, when it actually happens, as if it would have never happened, the person wouldn't have known how do you want to say that, how imperfect he is. But a person, that's why a lot of people, they want to go alone. They become a hermit. They go alone. Everything is okay. Right? They don't want to get married. They don't want to get, everything is okay, because then they can just live with all their imperfections. They think that they're the boss. They think that they're God. That's why God in the beginning says, not good, the person should be alone. But when a person gets married, all of a sudden there's troubles, problems. Now he has to provide for a family, and now he has troubles from his family. Now he has to get along with other people. Now he has to be nice, he has to be kind, he has to be patient. If he's alone, he doesn't have to be patient, doesn't have to be nothing. Right? He's alone, everything, whatever he wants to do, he does. What he doesn't want to do, he doesn't do. Doesn't have to be considerate, doesn't have to be this. But when he's with other people, then it means that he has to correct his personality. He has to correct himself and personality. He's just becoming a hermit because he's a super egotist. He's a terrible, terrible personality. There's a bad temper. There's everything bad. If he would get rid of these things, he would be a normal person. You can say, so what do I care? What do I care? So the answer is no. God put us in the world in order to lead a meaningful life. To be alone is not meaningful. You're not helping anybody. You're not interacting with anyone. So even though that the world presents us with problems, but these problems purify us. They refine us. They bring a person, if he's lucky, they bring a person to connect to the creator of the universe. The Darlangen werden der Sheikhus, they're clearing, I'm sorry, the explanation. What is the connection between the problems of a livelihood and the mabul is like this. The penimius dika inyan from mikvah, the inner meaning of the whole idea of a mikvah the whole the idea of what is a mikvah is bittul. Bittul simply means surrender. It means surrender. Surrender to a good thing. A person, for instance, wants to learn how to play piano. So what do you want to play piano? And there's all these keys. There's 88 keys, whatever. You got 10 fingers. You also have arms. You have a forehead. You have this. You can do whatever you want. Just start pounding away. Not only that, who says you have to play on the keys? There's the whole world. There's to play on the wood. There's wood all around it. The legs of the piano. There's the seat that you're sitting on. But there's the whole world. What do you even have to sit on the seat for? So in order to play the piano, if you want to, if you like the music, so you have to control yourself. You have to control yourself. That's called bittul. Bittul means you do what's proper. And you want to play piano. So you have to surrender yourself to the music, to the piano. You have to train your fingers. You have to know which. And that's the way it is with everything. Right? You want to be a doctor, so you just can't do what you want to. You have to surrender yourself to what heals. That's called bittul. Bittul means you do what's the proper thing. You're in the army. You're in a team of sports, whatever it is. You have to do what is proper thing. You just can't do whatever you want. You have to do what is the right thing to do, the proper thing to do in order to win. That's the idea of bittul. That's the idea of the mikvah. Mikvah is that God has things that He wants to do. He wants you to do, and you don't want to do it. You have no desire to do it. There's things that God doesn't want you to do, and you do want to do it. Right? Like we just finished saying that the German, the Nazis, what do you want to call them? The communists, they wanted to kill, they wanted to steal. What's wrong with them? Right? They were killing, they had excuses made up why it's okay to kill and why it's. In the Torah, there's also sometimes times when you can kill, right? The Torah, there's also times when you can take things from other people. It's permissible to do. There's times when there are battles, you can take the spoil of battle. So who says that the Torah is right? Maybe I'm right. So the reply is no, the Torah comes from God, and God creates you. You don't create anything. Right? You're just a creation. All of a sudden, you're making up your own laws. So yeah, I'm making up my laws. So that's the idea of bittul. Bittul means that you surrender what you want to do to what the Creator wants to do. Like the piano player, he surrenders his comfort and his whatever to what the composer of the music and the creator of the piano, what they want you to do with that's called bittul. So bittul, Azogi the Rambam lists, that's the idea of the mikvah. That's the idea of Judaism, that there's this thing called the mikvah, this body of water that's exactly made according to specifications. That brings a person to bittul. Bittul means that you don't want to follow your will. You want to follow God's will. That's what the Rambam writes. In the end of the laws of mikvah, the Rambam writes that you should not, the idea of the mikvah is not only the physical one, but also the spiritual one. That you have to change your whole value system and your whole order of priorities in life. Soll sich Teufel sein in the Wasser, from reine das, that you have to immerse yourself in what's called pure awareness. The Rebbe darf a mikvah halten 40 Tag. That's why the mikvah has to have 40 units of water. Because this is the measurement of that. There's enough water that the body of a person can be covered by them. Average person. This means was the Zeinemena room. The water covers the ganzen menschliche Körper, the entire physical human body. Your whole body has to be under the water. Und Tvila is the Zelber Osios as Habital. And Tevila, which means to be immersed in the water, is the same letters as Bittel, as the surrender that we talked about. Thus, this means, as der Bittel was gate arois from sein ich, that the person goes out from his own egotism, poilt in him causes as an aliyah. This brings an elevation, der Heuben, an elevation. Un ervet a kli, a person becomes a vessel for holiness. For holiness. What does it mean, a vessel for holiness? What does it mean, a vessel? A vessel means, listen, the fact is, everything we do, and we do it because we have an inspiration from somewhere else. Right? Everything we do. This, I heard this story. They say that Beethoven was a famous composer, maybe the most famous composer of all time. And they say he once wrote a piece that was impossible for the violin to play. You know, he had an orchestra, so there was some notes that the violin couldn't reach. It was too fast. It was too complicated. So the violinist came to Beethoven and says, "Listen, you wrote something here, and no, you can't play it. I've been trying for a week. I can't play it." So Beethoven says, "Listen, I'm talking to God. What do I care about your little violin? Right? You had a little box over there with a few strings on it. What's that got? I'm talking to God. God is sending me." And everything that we do comes from some sort of an inspiration from somewhere else. Comes from some sort of an inspiration. The most simple song, whatever it is, rock and roll, everything that we do is a gift from God. Sometimes it succeeds, sometimes it doesn't. Success is a gift from God. And we are basically just vessels for something that's higher than us. Some sort of inspiration, some sort of ability, some sort of. But we have to be good vessels. We have to be a good vessel for this inspiration. So if what we want to be inspired by is by the Creator himself and do what is right, then we have to purify ourselves. If we don't want to be, then there's a lot of, in the world, you look in the world, you see that people are inspired now, especially there's this big thing, in the universities, everything, that you have to do what you want. You have to do what you want. You're not supposed to do what anybody else does. Government is bad. Religion is bad. No one can tell me what to do. But I'm going to be free. I'm going to do what I want. There's no restrictions whatsoever. All the past restrictions, there's no such thing as, no definitions. There's no man. There's no such thing as male or female. There's no such thing as a family. A whole new insanity. This insanity itself, it has all sorts of weird limitations to it. Right? You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't say anything against me. Where did all these ideas come from? So the ideas, they come from above. So it depends what you're a vessel for. That's the idea. It says that God created bad in the world. He created, you want to call it the devil, the Satan, the Yetzer Hora. And this gives a person all sorts of urges and ideas and things that he thinks he's, really flying free, and that he's. But the fact of the matter is that these things are the opening to death and confusion. And thus is oich the emes kavana. This is the true intention. Why God gives a person daigos a parnasa, worries about getting along in the world, about making a livelihood. Because it stops and confuses a person temporarily. Right? I can do whatever I want to. Where are you going to get food from? That's why nowadays there's this thing of socialism. The government will give you all of your food. The government will give you what you want. You don't have to worry about it. There's no worries. That's the worst thing in the world. A person has to, that in a way is the whole benefit of capitalism, that a person has to worry about where he's going to get money from and figure out some sort of a way, make an effort to get the money in the best way. Because it has its downside also. If the people are crooked, it doesn't make any difference what type of a government you have. I remember there was a book. They asked Viktor Frankl, Professor Viktor Frankl, that I'm a very big fan of his and his ideas. The Rebbe also was very in favor. He once lectured in Karl Marx University in Vienna, and they asked him what political system is the best, political system, economic system, which is the best? And which was a loaded question because it was a communist university, right? At least they taught communism. And so he said, basically all the systems are basically the same. They all have, the ideal is the same, that humanity should benefit. He said the big difference between them is, what means are you willing to use in order to achieve these goals? The goals are basically the same, that mankind should lead the best life possible. The question is, what type of means are you willing to use in order to implement these goals? Do the goals justify the means? Right? In other words, if it's a beautiful goal, everybody's going to be happy, everybody's going to this. Anybody who, in order to get that goal, you're allowed to kill people, and you're allowed to, right? So this idea of going to the mikvah and the whole idea of purifying and worrying in the world, and in order to get to get what you need, that the world presents problems, it comes to show you that you're not the boss, that you can't use any means that you want. That's what it's supposed to be. A person can be broken, and he goes out from his own self, and by means of this, he becomes a vessel for holiness. So there's a certain good thing about the worries of the world. It can take a person either direction. It either can make him into a robber, or it can make him humble, a liar, a cheater. Is vibald as the emissary kavana, that because the true intention is knit into bestrafen, because the whole reason that there are worries, physical worries in the world, are not there in order to punish a person, God forbid. Problems with health, problems with children, problems with nor bichdei rise to shranken, or only to clean and to purify and to clean a person from his not good character traits, is b'meila versteht sich. So now we can understand as das can up getan werden euch in a minute. So therefore it can be done in one instant. Or in ein rega, or even in one moment, a minute, in one moment, wird arois nemen the kavana penimis derfon. He can take out the inner intention from this. That's ideally supposed to be the idea of going to prison. It's supposed to be a person, he lives too freely, you're doing too much what you want, so they put him in prison to remind him that he's not the boss. That's what it's supposed to be. I don't know if that works or not, but that's supposed to be the idea, that you're not the boss. You cannot do what you want. Now, amazingly, what happens is that these people, let's say, that are thieves, right? A person is a thief. So he goes and steals from other people. He really thinks he has to do it. He really thinks he needs, $500 shirts and whatever it is, a brand new $200,000 car in order to impress people. But when he stops doing this, right, suddenly he realizes that he can get along very well without being, the most popular person in the world, or the most, powerful person, that he can get along very well. In fact, even better. He realizes that the things that he wanted weren't really necessary. Some people cheat in business, and they lie, and they have power trips and things like that. But if they lose, they realize they really didn't need these things. These things were totally unnecessary. In fact, they were a lot of times even destructive. People that run around after pleasures, after they realized that the whole life was just, it was just, how do you say, they missed the point of meaning in life. Und Polen bei sich, thus was their Indian darf oiftan. It causes the things that a person should accomplish. There was a famous story that there were two people, it was in Israel, that they had two Jews, and they got in an accident, and both of them were paralyzed with a quadriplegic. And one of them just went into depression and he just died. And the other one decided he's going to overcome it. How do they say? I broke my neck, but my neck didn't break me. And he overcame. And he became a professor. He wrote books. Right? I guess he figured out a way to, he dictated the books. And he became very, helped a lot of people. So either you can, how does it say, if it doesn't kill me, it improves me. Is showing their mit a line yotze. Therefore it can be even just one moment of difficulty in life, and this can already refine the person and bring him to a higher awareness of why he's here. Und es can showing by him während den neiche. There can already be this nachas ruach, this pleasure that he gives to the Creator, Sai and Gashmis and Sai and Ruchdas, and also that he gets pleasure, also physically or and spiritually, that he becomes a person that's more in tune with the truth and less in tune with the physical, the falsity of the world. And the world is incredibly false. When a person dies, so there's all these religions that make up all these things, but it's what really does happen when a person dies? What happens? All the things that he's done in his life, what's the purpose of the whole business if afterwards the person dies? So the answer is that there are things that are meaningful, there are things that are eternal. There are things that we can't see. There's love, there's beauty, there's value, there's If a person does things according to what it says in the Torah, then these things are eternal, they never go away. Person does good things. Let's say he does good things. He happens to know, he happens to be a nice person. He likes to help other people. Okay, but he's doing good things. Right? How exactly it works and rewards and punishments and things like that, I don't know. It says that a non-Jew, that he acts in a proper way. If he does it accidentally, he doesn't do it because the Torah says. He does it because he just figured out himself. It goes according to his conscience. So it says a person like that also gets rewarded. What does it mean rewarded? That the things that he did are eternal. And that after his body, the soul never dies. So after the body is gone, the things that you do that are eternal, they're eternal. They're beyond time. The lack of a body does not imply that there's not going to be any more soul. So like I say, I don't know exactly how it works, what the punishment, what the reward is, but this for sure I know that a person does something good, he does something that's according to what the Torah says, that there has to be some sort of a reward. If he does it, a good thing, because the Torah says it, because there's 7 Noahide commandments, then there's a special level of heaven and things like that that people get. That's for sure. But we're talking about doing things that are eternal. A person that spends his whole life running after his own pleasures and only after his own greatness, and in order to get it, he does anything, he lies, he cheats, or whatever. So he's led an empty, totally empty life. Let's just do one more, because I want to. These turbulent waters, they came from the two types of turbulent waters. There was waters that came from, there was waters that came from the below, and there's waters that came from above. This indicates that there's two different types of troubles. There can be spiritual troubles and physical troubles. That which comes from the physical, that's from the below. Those are things in the world. But then there's also spiritual problems that people can have. Suddenly he realizes that he's leading a meaningless life. He hasn't got any problems. The Rebbe is going to say, I have to finish here now. The Rebbe is going to say that the secret is to go into the ark, the teva. And the teva, the word teva in Hebrew also means words, letters and words. Go into the letters and the words of the Torah. The letters of the words of the Torah, that's what protects a person and saves a person from the turbulent waters. And then afterwards, the goal is that a person should go out of the letters of Torah into the world and make the world a better place. With the experience, with the knowledge, and with the lessons that he's learned, is the goal is not to stay within the words of the Torah and to separate yourself from the world. But the waters of the flood dried up, and then the job was to go into the world and make a new world. And that's what Noah did. He made a new world, a new pure world, clean world. So now every non-Jew in the world is a direct descendant of Noah. He has the power and the fortitude to defy the whole world and defy all the bad things and to refine himself, and then afterwards to go out and to refine the world, to make the world a better place. And that's why Noah is the predecessor for Abraham. Next week we're going to learn about Abraham, that he came not only to make the world a better place and an orderly place and a meaningful place, but to make the world a blessed place and a godly place, a holy place, as we'll learn next week. Now let's learn the Yom Yom of today, as is our custom. Today's from my father's Sichot, from my father's sayings, and the Hasidic, he said like this, the Hasidic exodus from Egypt, there's the mitzvah of telling the story, namely Hasidic stories. What in the night of Passover, what do? We relate, we talk about how God took us out of Egypt miraculously. Says the fact is there's also a Hasidic going out of Egypt, that you have to tell Hasidic stories and to sense and appreciate that in the story, the deepest inwardness of the point of life. You have to know that every story teaches us something. That's the whole, in fact, the whole first book of the Bible has basically no commandments in it. The first book of the Bible is only stories. The Bible is supposed to be, the Torah is supposed to be commandments. That's the unique thing about Judaism, that it tells us exactly what God wants. Well, in the first book of the whole Bible, the book of Genesis, there are no commandments, basically. There are certain commandments, but only they have to be repeated. But generally, there are no commandments. So why are all these stories? Because all the stories are there in order to guide us, to give us a lesson in life. Every story must bring forth some sort of a good character trait, an inner enthusiasm for doing the commandments or doing the commandments in the best way, and should enable the listener to sense the pleasantness of Hasidic teachings and the pleasantness and joy in doing what the Torah says. Have a good Shabbat with Moshiach now. Thank you for listening. God willing, next Sunday, 8:15 in the morning, we'll be together again. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you very much.